Welcome to Tech for Founders podcast. I'm your host, Panita, and today we have a special guest joining us, Steve Kelly, the president of Argentio. Steve is a visionary leader and an entrepreneur who has revolutionized deployment scripting with Argentio's cutting-edge automation technology. In our interview titled Unlocking Your Company's Intellectual Property, How Automation Can Save Time and Boost Profitability, we'll explore the inspiration behind Argentio and how their automated solution addresses the challenges of deployment scripting. We'll delve into the benefits of their technology for businesses, including recouping lost intellectual property, reducing redundancy, and streamlining operations. Steve will share success stories of companies that have leveraged Argentio's solutions to increase profitability. Join me in this insightful conversation as we unlock the potential of automation with Steve Kelly, president of Argentio. Let's explore how technology can save time, boost profitability, and propel your business forward. Welcome to the show, Steve. Welcome to Tech for Founders, the podcast that helps non-technical founders leverage technology in their businesses. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tech for Founders, and follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to stay tuned for new episodes. Can you tell me a bit about Argentio and what inspired you to create an automated solution for deployment testing?
Well, the three founders were all together at Cisco, a company I founded was acquired by Cisco doing IP telephony stuff. And as we got into some very big deployments with, I can't use their name, but with a big bank, Argentio or Cisco got paid to do the entire deployment, but then something didn't work and they had to start over from scratch. Well, all that deployment work is done manually. So when they started over from scratch, We just thought that was nuts. That the whole cloud business thing wouldn't fly if every time there was a minor hiccup, you started over. So that drove us to say, well, how do we automate this deployment activity and how do we kind of make use of the scripts as you use them so that you can reuse them?
I see. So it's very much a hands-on experience of facing the problem yourself and then seeing that this cannot do and you had to build something to solve it.
Yes, exactly.
So how does Argentio's technology work to help businesses recoup lost intellectual property and reduce redundancy?
Well, not too long ago, all of that work I just described was considered, it wasn't even scripted. It was done with people sitting at keyboards typing. Scripting was the first level of automation, and it made progress, but then you ended up doing the script every time you did a deployment. And what we brought to the table is the ability to generalize that scripting activity and reuse the stuff so that you can and base it on work you've already done in your company. So that objective experience, we capture it and then turn it into reusable software that you can use going forward so that you don't spend as many hours doing this stuff by hand.
I see. So it's very much using something that you've already done in the company and putting that into your technology and then having that automated.
Yes, and that's a little bit what's different about us. We start with your past experience. You've had people writing scripts for years. We're going to go capture that. We're going to classify it so you can find things, and then we're going to make the best of that stuff reusable so that going forward, you can do certain kinds of deployments without subject matter experts doing all the work.
I see. So would you say that this technology is it a kind of software that so when you put in the information, it comes out with reusable scripts, or does it go into your company and then there's someone who does this and then that comes out?
No, it's I mean, what we essentially are automating the process of automating. So the software does 99% of the work. Now, occasionally you're going to have something come up which is a little different than normal, and somebody has to look at it. But it's essentially an automated process of making scripts reusable.
I see. So what are some of the most common challenges that non-technical founders face when it comes to leveraging technology in their businesses? And how can automation help to overcome these challenges?
Well, first of all, you need to understand the difference between development and operations. The term DevOps comes up, but and we all kind of non-technical people talk about development. Well, that's only literally less than half the problem. Operations it goes on continuously. Some people talk about keeping the lights on, but it's continuous and it gets hidden. So first of all, you need to believe this can be done, but you also can't succumb to all the hype. ChatGPT is not going to write your scripts for you. It might be able to tell you about your scripts. That's a slightly more subjective activity, but it isn't going to write them. And there's some case studies where people have shown that. So the answer is somewhere in between, and that's where we sit.
I see. So you definitely do not believe that, because some people have been saying that since ChatGPT came out, that we won't need technical people anymore because we have ChatGPT. Well, that's the programmer. So you definitely do not agree with that kind of statement.
It will become something that aids the process, but you're not going to get rid of the subject matter experts that have this unique talent and have grown it with years of experience. And again, I tend to use the word, it's objective use of AI, not subjective use of AI, which is kind of different than what's talked about in the press.
So what would you say is objective and what is subjective use of AI?
Objective is it's based on hard fact. It doesn't deal with opinions or thought processes or news stories. It deals with hard fact. And in some cases, you might think that's easier, but in other cases, it's actually harder.
I see. So can you share any success stories of businesses that have used Argentio to streamline their operations and increase profitability?
Sure. I'll give you a government one and a non-government one. There's a company that used to be called Dimension Data. It's now NTT. We did a project for them. They had a lab they built for training. They built it numerous times, and it took them at least 200 hours every time they built it. We reduced that to an overnight unattended build that reduced the labor content of the deployment by 96%. So that's one. When we started working with the Air Force, the first thing we did for them was automate deployment of hybrid cloud, and hybrid cloud is considered pretty hard. So this is a combination of, let's say, AWS and Azure. We took 200 hours of scripting, and with that scripting, we're able to deploy hybrid clouds on those two platforms 9 different ways in less than 10 minutes each. And for the Air Force, that time saving is important, both in terms of cost and in terms of execution time.
I see. So this kind of technology would be most useful, especially for kind of like very big government projects and larger companies, would you say?
Yeah, this is probably Fortune 2000 kind of. Yeah, and this problem exists throughout the government, not in all the services and in the agencies. Right, everybody one way or another is involved in digital transformation. And digital transformation, half of that or more than half of that is the operations side, where deployment and maintenance are the ongoing activities of those organizations.
I see. So how does your machine-based discovery and low-code platform differ from other automation solutions on the market?
Well, I said a little earlier, we're kind of automating the automation and making it easy to get to reusable stuff. What we found with some big companies is they don't even know, the scripts are so untracked and redone that they don't even keep good track of them. And on the development side, they keep development stuff very, very close track of that. It's considered an asset. So what we're trying to do, if we can make scripts be usable, and we've done that to an extent, there's always more to do, then we can make that script library that a company has an asset as well. What we found is you actually have to, the bigger companies, you may have to help them go discover where their scripts are, because they have legal rights to them, but they're stored all over the place and they weren't keeping track of them. And that's what we call the ASCOT tool that helps you do discovery.
I see. So you're solving the issue of making this automated, but also helping find the scripts that are all over the place sometimes.
Find the scripts that you have as a starting point for how you want to do your automation. You've done this work multiple times. You just did it over and over again.
So what advice do you have for non-technical founders who are looking to implement automation in their businesses?
Well, I think we covered that. You need to believe that it can be done. You're not going to get rid of your SMEs. You're going to have SMEs, but they're going to enable other people by perfecting libraries and making the scripts reusable. You can get to a point where non-coders can do most of the operations tasks. And that's where we're trying to go. As I said before, believe it can be done, but also don't believe it can be completely automated. There's an in-between here that works.
I see. So there'll still be a need for technical people, but not too many of them, and most of it can be done by non-coders.
Well, so when you bring our kind of technology into a company, some engineers will be fearful that they'll lose their job. But the fact is, there's so much digital transformation going on that this just gets some of the annoying, time-consuming, boring tasks off their plate so that they can do much more interesting things. We learned that in spades. My first company that we sold to Cisco, that's how I got to Cisco, was called NetSolve, and it had the same issue. We were automating network management for companies, and some engineers would think that was threatening, but after they saw what it did, it freed them up to do the more interesting stuff that's on their plate. So there's still a shortage, and will be a shortage, maybe a growing shortage of SMEs. So subject matter experts. And what that means is you're going to have to automate in time to keep up.
I see. So the automation experts will still have jobs, but the jobs will be a lot more interesting because of your technology.
Yes. And they'll write code, deployment code, that is perfected for general reuse, and then other people will reuse it.
So would you say if other people were able to reuse this, would you say that's in the same company, or could it be expanded to other companies, especially with similar scripts?
Well, generally, to begin with, this is an inside company thing. We do look down the road to where there are certain scripts that even the Air Force is willing to share because everybody uses them and they're not proprietary. So yes, there will be some sharing between companies as this evolves, between companies and agencies.
That would be useful. So how does Argentio ensure the security and confidentiality of a company's intellectual property and data?
Sure. Well, since we kind of started with the Air Force, we're very conscious of that. We go to great extremes to keep the data safe. We can't see what you've uploaded into the system that's yours. If you want to let us see it, you might, but normally we can't see it. And then we have all sorts of encryption options for various purposes to protect outputted data if you need that.
I see. So you can't see it unless the customers willingly would like to share it, and you would have an option for that, like maybe like a button or something.
Not a button, they got to give us explicit permission. So we can see aggregate information about all the data in our system, but we can't see an individual customer's data and what he's done with it.
I see. So how does the use of automation impact the role of IT professionals in a company? I know we just talked about that.
We just kind of talked about that. It will make their life easier. It's even a work-life balance thing. You know, a lot of these deployments are done sitting at a computer overnight, waiting for things to happen and then doing 4 or 5 more keystrokes. All of that goes away. So it is a quality of life, work-life balance kind of an issue for people in the industry.
Definitely. So what new developments or innovations can we expect to see from Argentio in the future?
Well, we've basically made scripts reusable, but there's still some manual effort in equipping them to be reused. Basically, you have to fill out a list. We can, in our next generation, essentially automate filling out that list as well. So simply, we're focused on, you know, operations automation. There are many places we can take it. One of the next ones will be automatically collecting the data that needs to go into the script.
I see. So more automation for data collection to come.
Yes.
So what other industries or sectors could benefit from the automation and technology that Argentio offers?
Well, right now we're focused on the operations side of DevOps. That's a huge need. As I said, it's more than half the problem, actually, in digital transformation. There's another concept out there called shift left, which means over time, a lot of the operations capability needs to be moved back into the development side. And that's for both application testing and for and to make the applications more complete. So, you know, this is a little projected, but the ops side of DevOps may eventually get consumed into the dev side or partially consumed. That's what's meant by shift left.
I see. So there's been a lot going on with ChatGPT and everything. And how has that impacted the way you operate your company?
See, our discovery capability, the Ascot side of the product, uses essentially machine learning or AI concepts in the way we characterize scripts, so that we write descriptions of the scripts automatically so that someone who didn't write the script can find the script they want. So we're very much into this. We use some of the same underlying tools that ChatGPT uses to, but again, I draw the distinction between subjective AI and, in our case, objective AI. So we're on the objective side because this is, you know, scripting languages have tons of syntax and a whole bunch of little teeny details that have to be right, and they're very prescriptive. So the scripting part uses deep language processing concepts that are common in AI, but we simply use them somewhat differently. So we're not anti-AI. We just are realistic about how it needs to be applied in our particular set of problems.
I see. So a more objective use of AI rather than subjective.
Well, the data feeding the AI is purely objective. And in our case, based on your, as a company, your past experience. So we're collecting your objective past, not everybody's objective past.
I see. So the difference would be, well, with ChatGPT and I mean the new versions at least, they pull all the data from the web, but yours pulls all the data from a company. And
From a
then
company or an entity, right? So there's a term that's floated around called tribal knowledge. We tend to capture a company's tribal knowledge, which also has an impact when somebody quits that's carried a bunch of it around in their head. If you've used our process, they won't walk away with the family jewels accidentally, right?
that's very useful. So so Argentio works for mainly large scale companies. Would you say it would work for SMEs as well, and also for non-technical companies?
It's priced and offered so that it can be delivered to SMEs, but its biggest power is for fairly large groups, with 15, 20, 30 engineers that need to be able to share their activity. If you have 3 or 4 people, they can use it individually, but they may not get a lot out of the sharing capability. And you said non-technical companies, there aren't any. Every company has a website, has some computer exposure, even if they're selling bubble gum, right? So digital transformation is across the entire population of industries. It just may be a little part of company A, right?
That makes sense. So if a bubblegum company, for example, wants to make sure that hey, when when their employees leave, they still have the information available and be able to pass that on. So Argentine would be able to help with that.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's more powerful for bigger companies because the sharing problem becomes much larger, but it is applicable as you go down market as well.
So do you have anything else that you would like to share?
I think we covered most everything. We think that there's about 100 million hours a year spent doing scripting or the operation side of DevOps. And therefore, I mean, we've shown examples where we reduced it by 96%. Maybe that's a little extreme, but we can take a huge amount of that labor content out of the process and free up people to do more interesting work as we do that. That's our mission as Argentio.
Perfect. Thank you very much for joining me today and sharing all your insights.
Sure.